My wife went to work abroad, found a new man and forgot about our children. Now I have to explain to my 8- and 5-year-old children why their mom doesn't call anymore. When my wife, Janice, first brought up the idea of taking a job abroad, I was hesitant. We had a good life in Indiana. It wasn't lavish, but it was ours. Our kids, Ben 8, and Lily, 5, were happy, and while my job as a mechanic kept the lights on, her desire to advance her career in marketing felt like the ticket to a better future. Janice was always ambitious. She dreamed big. Bigger than our small town could hold, so when the job offer came from a major company in London, it seemed like an opportunity we couldn't pass up. I still remember the night we sat down at the kitchen table, the kids tucked in bed, and pored over the details. "It's only 2 years," she said, her voice tinged with hope. "We'll save so much I can come back with a stronger resume, and maybe we can finally buy that house we've been dreaming about." I wanted to say no. I wanted to tell her that the thought of being apart terrified me. But I also saw her determination and the light in her eyes that told me how much this meant to her. We talked about video calls, holiday visits, and how the kids would understand they loved their mom fiercely, and we believed they'd adapt. With that, we made a plan. Janice would leave first to settle in, and the kids and I would join her for extended visits during school breaks. We told ourselves that this was temporary, a sacrifice for a better life. We even framed it as an adventure, something to make the family stronger. I hugged her tightly at the airport, whispering, "We'll make this work. For us. For the kids." She smiled back, tears glistening in her eyes. "I'll call you every night." And just like that, our new chapter began. The first days without Janice felt strange, almost surreal. The house was quieter, and the routines we once shared had an undeniable gap. I managed by keeping things structured, waking up the kids, preparing meals, and handling homework. It was exhausting, but it helped keep my mind from dwelling on her absence. Initially, Janice called every evening. Those brief moments kept the kids smiling, even if it was through a screen. Ben showed her his school projects, and Lily held up her toys, eager for approval. I tried to make things normal for them, but there was always a sense of something missing. Weekends were harder. I filled the time with activities like trips to the park or movie nights, anything to keep us occupied. At night, when the kids were asleep, the quiet felt overwhelming. But I told myself this was temporary. We'd adjust, and eventually, we'd be together again. At first, everything seemed to go according to plan. Janice's calls were regular, and the kids looked forward to hearing her voice. But as the weeks turned into months, the frequency of her calls started to decline. At first, it was an occasional missed evening because of work meetings or time zone confusion. Then, the excuses became more frequent. The kids noticed the changes before I was ready to admit them myself. Ben started asking why Mommy hadn't called in a few days. "Is she mad at us?" he asked one evening, his voice small and uncertain. Lily, who was too young to understand the full weight of the situation, simply assumed Mommy was busy and would call tomorrow. I tried to fill the gaps by texting Janice, reminding her to call when the kids were awake. Sometimes she'd respond hours later with a rushed apology or blame her hectic schedule. I wanted to believe her, but doubts began to creep in. One night, after another missed call, Ben refused to go to bed. He sat at the kitchen table, staring at my phone, waiting for it to ring. "Maybe if we stay up, she'll call," he said, his eyes filled with a hope that broke my heart. I stayed up with him for a while, but the phone remained silent. I tried to keep the connection alive for the kids. I'd send Janice pictures of their art projects, videos of Lily's dance recital, and updates on Ben's soccer games. Sometimes she'd reply, but often she wouldn't. When she did, her responses felt impersonal, almost like she was talking to strangers instead of her family. The turning point came when I saw her social media updates. Pictures of her at trendy restaurants, exploring landmarks, always smiling with new friends I'd never heard of. It wasn't the Janice I knew, the one who'd eagerly talk about our plans for the future or get excited about the kids' milestones. She seemed detached, like her life abroad was pulling her further away from us. I still clung to the belief that this was just a phase, that she was overwhelmed with work and adjusting to her new life. But deep down, I knew something was changing, and it wasn't for the better. It was a Friday night when the truth finally hit me. I had been putting the kids to bed after another evening without hearing from Janice. Once they were asleep, I decided to check my phone for any missed messages. Instead, I was met with a flurry of notifications from friends and acquaintances. "I didn't know how to tell you, But you need to see this. Hey man, I think you should know what's going on. I'm sorry, but you deserve to know the truth. Each message contained a link. My heart pounded as I opened one, and the sight froze me in place. It was a photo of Janice in bed with another man. The sheets were rumpled, her hair disheveled, and his arm draped casually across her. Their faces were close, smiling at the camera, as if they didn't have a care in the world. The shock was like a punch to the gut, but it was quickly followed by anger. More messages flooded in, all showing the same image, all offering the same apologetic tone. Friends, coworkers, even casual acquaintances had seen it. My wife, our life, had become the subject of whispers and pitying glances. That I stared at the image, my hands trembling. It wasn't just the betrayal that hurt, it was the casualness of it, the blatant disregard for me and the kids. This wasn't a private mistake, it was humiliation, and it was public. That I tried calling her, my hands shaking as I dialed her number. It rang endlessly before going to voicemail. I left a curt message. Call me as soon as you get this. We need to talk. She didn't call back that night or the next morning. By the time she finally picked up on Sunday afternoon, I was seething. I barely let her get a word in. Who is he, Janice? I demanded. Her silence confirmed everything. It's not what you think, she finally said, her voice defensive and flat. Don't lie to me. I snapped. I've seen the photo. Everyone's seen the photo. The kids are here, waiting for you to call, and you're out with whoever the hell he is. She sighed, a sound that only fueled my anger. His name is Alex, she admitted, her tone almost dismissive. It just happened. I didn't plan this. My grip on the phone tightened. You didn't plan this? We had a plan, Janice. A future. Do you know what this is doing to Ben and Lily? She didn't respond, which told me everything I needed to know. Her life abroad had become her reality, and we were no longer a part of it. I ended the call abruptly. Unable to hear more excuses, my mind was racing, torn between heartbreak and rage. But I couldn't let the kids see how shattered I was. I had to stay strong for them, even as my world crumbled. Life as a single parent wasn't something I had planned for, but it became my new reality almost overnight. The fallout from Janice's betrayal was immediate and brutal. The kids didn't know the full story, but they felt the shift. Their mother's calls had all but stopped, and when they did come, they were short and mechanical, as if she was checking a box. Ben grew quieter, his once bright and curious energy dimmed. He stopped showing me his school projects and seemed to withdraw into himself. One night, as I tucked him in, he asked softly, "Is Mommy mad at us? Is that why she doesn't call?" The question nearly broke me. I reassured him that it wasn't his fault, but I could see in his eyes that he didn't believe me. Lily, too young to fully grasp the situation, would often ask when Mommy was coming home. Her questions were a dagger to the heart, each one a reminder that I had no real answers for her. She started clinging to me more, asking for extra hugs at bedtime and refusing to let go of my hand during walks. Balancing everything was a monumental struggle. I'd wake up early to get the kids ready for school, juggle my full-time job at the auto shop, and then come home to make dinner and help with homework. The house felt like it was always on the brink of chaos. Laundry piled up, bills needed paying, and there was never enough time. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. I tried to keep things as normal as possible for the kids. I attended every parent-teacher conference, made time for soccer games, and even attempted to bake cookies for a school fundraiser, though my attempt was more laughable than edible. But the cracks were showing. My temper was shorter, my patience thinner. There were nights I'd collapse into bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I was going to keep going. Financially, things were tight. Janice had promised to send money for the kids, but the payments were sporadic at best. More often than not, I was left scrambling to make ends meet, cutting corners wherever I could. The extra expenses, like the unexpected cost of new shoes for Ben's rapidly growing feet, were constant reminders that I was doing this alone. I tried reaching out to Janice, begging her to at least stay connected for the kids' sake. Sometimes she'd agree to call them, but it was clear her heart wasn't in it. The kids would wait eagerly by the phone, only for her to cancel at the last minute, citing work emergencies. Each missed call chipped away at their spirits. One night, Ben burst into tears out of nowhere. "Why doesn't she want to see us, Dad?" he sobbed. I held him tightly, whispering reassurances. I didn't believe myself. In that moment, I realized the depth of the emotional scars Janice's absence was leaving on them. I could feel my anger toward her growing, but I buried it. The kids didn't need to see that. They needed me to be their rock. Despite everything, I pushed forward. I leaned on my own parents for occasional help, though they lived a few hours away and couldn't be there as much as I needed. Friends stepped in when they could, offering to babysit, or just lend an ear when I needed to vent. It wasn't perfect, but it kept us afloat. The hardest part wasn't the physical exhaustion or the financial strain. It was the emotional weight. Watching the kids struggle to understand why their mother had seemingly abandoned them was unbearable. I wanted to shield them from the truth, but I also knew they deserved honesty. Finding that balance was a constant battle. Through it all, I held on to one resolve: I would not let her choices define our family. I would give Ben and Lily the stability and love they deserved, even if it killed me. 2 years have passed since Janice left, and our lives have taken a new shape. The divorce was finalized last month, quietly and without resistance from her. She didn't contest custody or support, as though she had already moved on. The kids and I have found our rhythm. Ben, now 10, has grown quieter, spending much of his time lost in books. Lily, at 7, still asks questions about her mom, wondering why she doesn't visit or call more. When Janice does reach out, it's brief and impersonal, a short text or a generic gift. The kids notice, and I see the confusion in their eyes. Parenting alone has been a challenge, but it's also given me purpose. I've learned to juggle work, school projects, and emotional support, often on little sleep. Money is tight, but we get by. My focus has been on giving the kids stability, even if it means sacrificing my own comfort. Janice's absence is still a source of anger and sadness, but I channel that into determination. The three of us are a family, even if it looks different than it used to. And while the scars she left may take time to heal, I know we'll move forward together.